Ever curious why even the brightest minds make puzzling financial decisions? This psychologist explains why.
Dr. Moira Somers is not your average financial expert. She's a clinical neuropsychologist, a family wealth consultant, and the author of Advice That Sticks, a book that's reshaping the way professionals give financial advice.
Her work doesn't just look at numbers. It dives into the emotions, habits, and blind spots that shape our financial decisions.
But what makes her different is this. She doesn't believe in quick fixes. She believes in understanding the why behind your money choices.
In this conversation, Dr. Somers opens up about what really drives financial behavior, why most advice fails, and what it takes to create lasting change, not just in your bank account, but in your life. I'm Dr. Lee.
And I'm Emilia.
And welcome to the Enriched Mindset Podcast.
Today, we're thrilled to have Dr. Moira Somers here with us today. Dr. Somers is a neuropsychologist, family wealth consultant, and executive coach specializing in the psychology of money and family dynamics. Her expertise ranges from deeply personal financial decision-making to broader systemic issues like financial follow-through and equitable access to capital. Her work is grounded in research from neuroscience, behavioral economics, management science, and positive psychology. Although based in Canada, Dr. Somers' influence is global. She's a faculty member at both the Ultra High Net Worth Institute and the Sudden Money Institute. She recently led the Financial Psychology Special Interest Group for the APA and is a sought-after speaker and writer in the financial advising circles. Her book, Advice That Sticks: How to Give Financial Advice That People Will Follow, is an international bestseller tackling the challenges of unimplemented financial advice. It's been adopted by universities, private firms working with ultra high net worth clients, and credit counseling agencies as a must-read guide.
Before we dive in, we like to start off our episodes with a bit of a dad joke. So here's one for you. Why did the Irish investor always have so much money?
I do not know. Do I want to know?
You want to know? Because his money was always Dublin.
Oh, mercy.
Okay, that's a pretty bad one. Okay, here's another. Why is money called dough?
I don't know.
Because everyone needs it. Okay. All right, with that amazing introduction, I'll pass it on to Emilia.
All right.
Save me, Emilia. Save me.
Okay, we'll jump in. All right, so Dr. Somers, you refer to yourself as a wealth psychologist. Can you explain to us what that means?
Sure. I'm a clinician by training, and lately I have been doing more and more work within the general area of financial psychology and working with business owning families or enterprise owning families in particular. And it's getting further and further into some of the complexities that these families face in dealing with wealth, and not just the technical complexities, but the relational and the emotional complexities that go with having significant affluence.
And can you just tell us what was your initial passion that drew you to psychology in the first place, and maybe your journey through undergrad and grad school and then starting your career?
Oh, mercy. To call it passion. To call it passion would be to minimize the ambivalence that kind of characterized that journey. I was always torn, John, between medicine and psychology. I absolutely loved the humanity that both psychology and religious studies brought. In fact, I did a double major in undergrad in those areas to be able to think deeply about what it was to be human in terms of both growth and in terms of struggle. But I also really wanted to be able to meet people and to address suffering at some of the deepest levels, and thought that medicine was going to provide the opportunity to do that. I didn't necessarily like some of the parts of medicine. I loved the science part of medicine, and I loved, as I said, the ability to really spend very deep and quality time with people that psychology allowed. Neuropsychology kind of arrived on the scene for me like a lightning bolt, which was this opportunity to do both in-depth science and study of the brain, as well as that opportunity to work with people in very in-depth ways when there were some profound struggles, either because of neurological disease or accident, brain trauma. In the end, I decided to go on to graduate school and to do postgraduate work in that area. And that helped to resolve some of the ambivalence. Although if I had the chance to do the road not traveled or to do multiple pathways in life, I think I would still like to explore the medical pathway at some point.
Can you please talk about how you got into succession planning and what was the driving force between making that switch from neuropsychology to the field of wealth psychology?
As I was doing clinical work, as I was doing therapeutic work, especially with couples who might have been in relational distress over money, I realized I needed to get better at helping them with that. And so I did some in-depth training. And because I'm quite behavioral in orientation, that financial training actually was such that I was in people's money with them. I was tracking their finances, helping them see the flow of money in and out of their life, looking at their bank balances with them every week, and watching just how they made decisions. And that led into more in-depth studies in behavioral economics, which is all about the thinking around money.
For those of us who are in the financial independence community, we really inherently understand the importance of emotions and behavior and mindset on managing money. We know that finances are usually the number one stressor that people have. What is it about money, do you think, that makes mental health professionals feel, oh, maybe there's some kind of taboo about money that makes them reluctant to really address this in training programs?
I think a lot of training programs, first of all, strive to be evidence-based, and there hasn't been a lot of research on it. I think there's a sense that money is an unseemly topic. There is a lot of, I think, financial prejudice in therapeutic circles. Many people go into helping professions with the belief that it's wrong to want to be well off yourself, that the desire to do good and to do well can't somehow coexist. There's just all kinds of layers to this stuff. We all have these beliefs about money that those of us in the financial therapy community often refer to as money scripts, beliefs about money that were formed often when we were very young through maybe watching things within our own family. And there were lessons that were laid down at an unconscious level that we just grew up with, often unexamined, and they've influenced us in profound ways.
A lot of people see one path. For example, clinical psychology grad school, which now we're hearing is a 1% acceptance rate, but there are so many paths, there's so many opportunities. I'm just wondering if you can talk about some of the setbacks you might have experienced in your schooling and career, and because also our audience needs to hear that, how that's just a normal thing and how people overcome it.
Sure. Like I said, I just struggled with such ambivalence over whether to go on in psychology or not. I had planned to take a 2 or 3 year break between undergrad and grad to do some international relief work, and that assignment fell through at the last minute. So that was a setback. I got, in just a total fluke, got invited into one of the best grad schools without having to do the GREs because somebody else fell through at the last minute. So it was just like, okay, I guess I'll say yes. It meant that I didn't ever really resolve the ambivalence. I just slipped in. Another setback along the way was I mentioned that I lost a couple years worth of doctoral research. When I accepted that unexpected offer into grad school, I had resolved that, okay, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to just accept this, I'm going to make darn good and sure that the research that I do has some redeeming social value. And so I decided that I really wanted to study the experience of torture victims, of refugees. And so I did 2 years worth of doctoral research on the experience of torture victims from Central and South America. And one glorious day, I had all of the research findings in one place. We'd got them back from the translators and the back translators. It's quite a complicated process. And they were all in one locked filing cabinet that I was moving from one locale to the next. And the trailer in which that filing cabinet was attached to a truck became detached from a truck in a moving accident and bounced out onto a highway in Kitchener-Waterloo and opened up and spread all over the highway.
Oh my God.
And yeah, I lost 2 years worth of doctoral research. And
Unbelievable.
it is unbelievable. You just couldn't have made that up. And it just, had it been a day later, I would have had everything backed up, right? Like it
Yeah.
all would have been photocopied, but it had been that one day. And so with that loss went my shirk, right? My federal funding, and just the guilt, right? Of the loss of story. So I spent a year pretty much like crying and drooling. And I had just the most understanding doctoral advisor, fellow by the name of Herb Lefcourt. But after a year, he did say, okay, Moira, you do need to get back on the horse. What are we going to do here? And I read a very good book. I just came across it this week, actually, and called How to Complete and Survive Your Doctoral Dissertation. And that book, together with Herb reminding me that the most important thing was to get done. Now I was 3 years behind, and I didn't want to be 3 years behind. I wanted to graduate with my peers. And did I mention I was ambivalent about being in grad school? I didn't want to extend that. I wanted to go out and work and do good stuff. So I knew that I needed to choose something that I could now research on an undergrad population in a hurry that would be inherently motivating. I had my advisor telling me that I was not to think of this as painting the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. I was painting the toenail of a lesser prophet. That's how I was to think of this research.
Yeah.
And so I chose to study procrastination. I did a series of very fun studies. It was like the laughing stock of the department because there would be all of these people wandering around late, showing up for my studies. It's okay, hard to be blind to who you are. And then I was embarrassed because this had not been the socially relevant kind of research that I'd wanted to do. But again, you just never know. Nothing is wasted unless you waste it, is what I learned through this. It turned out that what I was studying as I went on to do this work at the medical school, what I was studying was in fact one of the fundamental human dilemmas, which is that we have a hard time following through with our own best intentions. Sometimes we think of procrastination as being this laughable little human foible. But sometimes we procrastinate on things like the lump in our breast, or sometimes we procrastinate on things like this problem in our marriage. So these are some examples of setbacks I got when I first graduated with my postdoc. I started a career path that I really liked at a hospital in Southern Ontario, but then my husband wasn't able to follow his career path in Ontario. So I needed to move in order to honor what it meant for us as a couple. And so what I've learned is that if you can hold the reins lightly on what you think of as the outer shell of what it is that you need, while staying true to and having people to talk to about the gist of what you want your career to be. Often there's more flexibility than you might have otherwise thought. As now the mother of two young men in their 20s, I just keep reminding them. I even heard it on the radio yesterday. Still to this day, 70% of jobs are in the hidden job market. They are never advertised. Distressingly, for people who don't have connections, 85% of jobs come about because of personal connections. And so using LinkedIn to say, help, right? I don't have connections. Can somebody out there meet me for coffee and talk to me? And can you learn how to put up, especially if you're deeply introverted, can you learn how to reach out and just network in a way that feels okay, that doesn't feel smarmy, and not be afraid to be who you are in terms of these side passions? Trust that although you may not be able to make money from your passion, that developing skill is really critical. So those are some of the things that I would say that I've learned from things that looked like setbacks at the time, but nothing is wasted unless you waste it.
On the flip side, can you maybe talk about how you define success, both professionally and personally? Is it through financial success, resources, personal fulfillment, something else? How do you define that?
For me, financial success is not driving the fancy car, having the big house. In fact, for me, it's the inner life that is the marker of success. I love having time to explore things that are of interest to me and to support causes that matter to me. For me, that's the marker of success. But that's not everybody's marker of success. So really encouraging people to think about what matters to you.
So you were the keynote speaker at the Financial Therapy Association conference last year. Can you tell us what is a financial therapist and how do you become a financial therapist?
Financial therapy is a place to explore how it is that you've come to think about money and feel about money, behave around it, relate to it. There are different schools of therapy when it comes to finance. As I said, I took a very behavioral way of looking at it so that as I was working with people in their money, I got to see what kinds of emotions came up and where the resistances came up, and was able to combine that with other kinds of clinical training that I already had.
My understanding is that the people who are financial therapists either come from a financial advising background and then learn about psychology, and then some are mental health professionals and they get training on finances. Is that kind of your understanding? Is that there's these two different worlds or silos and they've come together?
Yeah, there's the Financial Therapy Association, and they're mostly organized around training financial professionals on the therapeutic side of things. I did some training at the Financial Recovery Institute. There is a Canadian program called the Trauma of Money, and they have done some work helping banks within Canada become trauma informed, helping to do some work around the decolonization of money. Prepare to have your mind blown if you go through that program. They will help you. You can also earn some certification through them. I think more and more programs are coming up to help therapists do some deeper work around helping people uncover some of their own work around money. It's just harder to get training in the financial and becoming more financially literate yourself. It's important that you get in good financial shape yourself, that you understand if you're in debt, why is that? Can you work your way out of that? Do you know about investing? Where are the points at which you can develop your own financial literacy, your own wealth literacy? I would suggest that you be reading about money and get a subscription to some financial publications, some easy ones if you don't know anything. There are great financial publications that are Canadian. You can subscribe to the Globe and Mail and just read the business section every day. Start having money conversations more regularly. These are ways of just almost bringing money to ground, taking the charge out of money, so that you are less reactive yourself. Because if you don't do the work yourself, you can't help other people do the work that they need.
Right.
What are some of the biggest psychological barriers preventing people from making sound financial decisions?
The unconscious beliefs that they have, the training that exists all around us, the forces that exist all around us to get us to part with our money unconsciously. There's a whole body of literature. Psychologist Danny Kahneman wrote a book, a very important book called Thinking Fast and Slow. And many aspects of our financial decision making is just knee-jerk. It's reflexive. It doesn't go through a thoughtful, reflective filter. I remember when I was learning to do coaching, I did volunteering with MBA students, and I was involved in a program getting them job ready. And it just astounded me. Every one of the male students was completely prepared to negotiate their starting salary, and zero of the female students were. This is what I mean about some of the unconscious beliefs and biases and trainings that exist that we're not even aware of, that begin to affect our life in profound ways. If you don't negotiate your starting salary, that $20,000 difference when you're 25 is going to make a huge difference. Sometimes it was just $20,000. Sometimes it was much more. And the difference that would make over the course of a lifetime was just huge. Being willing to practice those discussions until you could, with a straight face, go into a negotiation and have that scary discussion. So just learning, where is it that you need to be working on your financial skills and being able to do that.
What do you think is some of the worst financial advice people are taking?
Listening to influencers, to people who actually have no financial training whatsoever, but who are the folks who are just verbally facile and famous. I remember during COVID when I had my two kids at home, and every couple of days, one or the other would come out of the bedroom, and I could tell they'd been on TikTok because they would say, Mom, are you sure that we shouldn't be doing something with crypto? Are you sure? It's like, honey, we can talk about this again. We can experiment with this, but I am not putting university funds into crypto. Yes, I am really sure about this. And there are just so many ways in which people exist to part you from your money. And so that's a super key moment that we need to look at.
About 70% of wealthy families lose their wealth by the second generation, and around 90% lose it by the third generation. Why do you think this is the case, and how do you prevent it?
Oh, I'm so glad you raised that point. It turns out that those studies are wrong.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's really good news. They're often quoted studies, John. What we know is that, in fact, families do a great job of stewarding their wealth and deciding how it is that they're going to distribute it. In some cases, this is simply they sell the enterprise and they go on to do different things with their money. So the business as it was as an entity may not last into the third generation, but that's because they sold it. And so they're doing different things with it. And sometimes it's just a denominator problem. So yes, the fourth and fifth generation are not as wealthy, but that's because it was a divide by issue. And in other cases, they've gone on and they don't own that particular enterprise, but they now own multiple enterprises,
I see.
which when in the aggregate are significantly worth significantly more. The tragedy isn't the loss of the wealth, it's the loss of the family ties. It matters. It's the loss of initiative, it's the loss of human potential. So that's what we really want to make sure is being addressed.
What's your thought on some very wealthy people deciding not to give an inheritance to their children because they think it's going to dampen their motivation? Is there something to be said about children who just have everything and losing that drive?
I try not to weigh in on the way that people decide to parent or not parent. I think what matters is that you have discussions about it, that it's not a secret. Your family's level of wealth is very rarely a secret to the kids. If it's your wealth, you get to decide. It's just that you should tell your kids what it is you're thinking. Values are what matter in addition to skill.
I think there's a lot of drama around the idea of a prenup nowadays. Do you think that people should get a prenup? Is it a good idea?
Oh boy, I think it really depends. Do either of you have two nickels to rub together? I don't know. What are you going to fight over, your tomcat? I think it's important that you be having discussions about what you value and what it is that you want to create in your life together. We did an internal team training a couple of weeks ago, and as part of that, we had a panel of rising gen from several local Winnipeg families, several members of several wealthy families. And the one thing that got them very emotional, these young people, was the mandate that they have prenup. And there were very good reasons why they were obligated by their families to have prenups. But all of them said that it was the worst time of their life. When you think about being engaged, like when I think about being engaged, that was like one of the best times of my life. And this was one of the worst times of their life. And it was because the lawyers got involved and it very quickly became dark and conflictual, and they were given no help whatsoever about how to navigate that. And so in the work that I do with couples, and I'm not a lawyer, and that's why I get hired to help them with this, right? I say, look, what we're doing here is we are creating the financial equivalent of your marriage vows. And we're going to turn this and take this to your lawyers, and they're going to, there may be some hard discussions about this, but first we want to get clear on what do you want for each other and with each other? What are you trying to protect with this? And it's not just the family business, because that'll be protected up the yin yang by your parent, but what do you want to protect in each other?
Is there a common financial mistake that couples make that can lead to breakups that you've seen?
Oh, non-disclosure. for sure. Financial secrets, non-disclosure. I would say the other thing that I see a lot of is just unstated assumptions about spending, earning, child rearing, who's going to stay home, are you going to stay home, whose money is whose, how should it be spent, what are you going to do in the event of significant financial discrepancy, what is the meaning of money, how do you take care of each other in the event of significant financial discrepancies. I have seen couples where one person's car is held together with a wing and a prayer, and the other person's driving a luxury car. It's just, and somebody is not feeling protected or cared for in that scenario. If you can't talk about what it is to feel cared for financially and to care for financially, you're in trouble because you are yoked in the eyes of the law, in the eyes of Revenue Canada, and you're yoked because of this, as I said, this generational history about what it means to come together.
If one partner earns more money than the other, what's the best way to handle money in a relationship in your professional opinion?
I think there needs to be, however it is you negotiate it, I think it's really helpful, at least when you start out, again, that you be prepared to hold the reins lightly and to renegotiate, but some level of a pooled resource, a shared resource, and some level of an ability to be independent, at least a little bit, if for nothing else than to buy each other treats and to buy yourselves treats, right? To buy yourself a treat, to not be scrutinized at every single level. The one thing that has allowed people to be better off financially has been marriage. It's like this economic powerhouse if you do it right. It's also the thing that can take you down faster than the speed of light, let me tell you. Living together has incredible advantages, even just at the level of shared expenses, right? But if you can go beyond that, sharing to work on shared dreams and getting to goals faster and getting investments working together for you, helping one person get through school faster and get student loans paid off faster. And I mean, it's remarkable. Like marriage has been the thing that has allowed people to get to places faster, or cohabitation, whatever floats your boat. But that involves this open-heartedness, and again, an ability to disclose, and an ability to negotiate, and an ability to repair when you've blown it, to come together and to say, I'm sorry. Or, you know what, I know we said we'd do it this way, but this just isn't working for me. Or, I think we need some help.
Taking things back to students, what advice would you give them? They're often feeling a sense of hopelessness given the cost of education, inflation, cost of housing, anxiety about their careers. Do you have any kind of financial psychology advice for a young student?
Turn off lifestyle television, turn off Instagram. It's so easy to compare. Oh gosh, I remember when we were doing studies on self-esteem in grad school, the quickest way to induce temporary low self-esteem in young university females was to show them a woman's, like a teen magazine for women. Just show them pictures of airbrushed young women. It's the best way to make them feel bad about themselves. And it's the same thing about lifestyle stuff. Right? It's just really easy to feel like you're the only one living in a place with scuzzy carpeting, and it's not true. So learn some financial skills, learn how to navigate, try to keep the student loans down to a minimum. If you can learn the joys of full-time course load, I know that it's become more common for people to extend undergrad by taking fewer courses and working part-time, but often the finance of that is not great. You end up trapping yourself in lower wage jobs for longer periods of time. So if you can possibly get through undergrad and grad school faster, you'll get yourself into higher earning jobs quicker. Look for job experiences that really do allow for marketable skills. So in psychology, see if you can get testing skills, for example. Always be looking for jobs that give you something that will provide you with better than average marketable skills. Network to find out what they might be. Go on to the APA or the CPA websites and look at some of those other divisions. Other than the clinical division, what are those other divisions? There's the consulting division, there's the forensic division, there's all of these other divisions. What are they about anyway? What kinds of people are in there? You can hang out there as a student. You can go to their conferences. You can go to their monthly calls, and there might just be something in there that floats your boat.
Do you think that financial literacy and things like investing, credit cards, and just money management in general, what age do you think is like an appropriate time to start introducing that to kids in school?
Oh, from the youngest of age, but I think we can't just leave it to the schools. I think we need to also bring it back home for parents.
Can you talk about maybe a personal money mistake you made when you were young and you wish you could go back and change?
Oh gosh, what haven't I done? Accepting what I was offered without negotiating. That was a big one from the very early age. Just babysitting, right? What do you charge? Oh, whatever. There's that. Having a deep and abiding suspicion of money and of wealthy people, feeling like that was not for the likes of me. I wish I had taken more business courses in university, but as I said, I did a religion and psychology major, and I was taking science as I could. So I don't know where I would have put all that, but I think it's possible to be learning about business as you go along and to just be deeply curious about things. And if you recognize that you've got some knee-jerk prejudices, just like catch that knee on the way up and say, wonder if maybe it doesn't need to be this way.
We asked this question to all our guests, and it's just what your personal opinion is on the relationship between money and happiness and what you've observed.
For me, the money happiness thing is just, as I said, about choice, about being able to have time and bandwidth to explore what I want to explore, to not be locked into a 9 to 5 that I don't want to be locked into, to have the choice to give to causes that matter so much to me now, especially now in this world now, to help people now. Yeah, that's the connection for me.
What is your number one piece of financial advice for students and the number one thing that they should be investing in?
Investing in themselves, and in particular skill development and in their social network. I don't mean that in an icky way. I just mean build your friendship, find people to love and to love you back. Think about all the different kinds of social support who will support you in all different kinds of ways, and live below your means as much as you possibly can, and think about raising your capacity to raise your means at the same time. So I'm not counseling that you live like a monk for the rest of your life, but whatever those, develop the ability to increase your means, but always, right, keep it low, because if the math doesn't work, that's when the stress sets in. Learning how to invest is one other way of just increasing your means, right?
Yeah.
But again, the market will take a hit. There will be times when the most important thing you can do is not look at your financial statements or your investment accounts. It's just like, put that away. You don't need it for another 20 years and just go live your life.
Maybe we can conclude with having you talk about where people can find out more about your work and what's next for you.
You can find out about my work through Blackwood Family Enterprise Services or Money, Mind, and Meaning. Those websites are out there. I have the book, Advice That Sticks. Soon, pray God, there will be another book about financial misconduct called Stumbles, Snakes, and Scandals. And that'll be me.
Awesome. This conversation has been so insightful. We've covered so many topics: the psychology of money, your personal journey through psychology, things like procrastination, the barriers that hold people back from success. We're just so thankful for your contributions today.
Your expertise and your passion for financial psychology and just helping other students are truly inspiring. You've given us and our listeners so much to think about, whether it's re-examining our financial habits, the relationships that we're in, shifting our money mindset, or finding ways to make financial advice actually stick.
So thank you so much for being such an inspiration and such a trailblazer in this field. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and share it with anyone else with a little bit of financial inspiration.